biotechnology deals with industrial scale production of biopharmaceuticals and biologicals. Okay, so things that are useful to us using living organisms like microbes, fungi, plants and animals. So let us see the fields in which biotechnology is applied. One is therapeutics, that is production of different types of drugs or medicines. Diagnostics, where we identify diseases. Genetically modified crops for agriculture, improved crops with higher productivity. Then processed food, bioremediation, waste treatment, energy production. So there are many different fields in which we will be applying this biotechnology. Okay. Then there are three critical research areas of biotechnology. One is we have to provide the best catalyst or an improved organism or a microbe which can produce some particular product that we want from a foreign gene that we have inserted into it, or to be able to produce a pure enzyme. Second is there should be optimal conditions for this catalyst to act. So for example, you have studied about bioreactors and how we grow the microbes in them. So in the same way, we have to provide an optimal condition so that the microbes can multiply and the particular product that we want can be produced. Then once the product is produced, it cannot be directly used, it has to be purified and it has to be tested. So that is done with the help of downstream processing technologies which will either purify the protein, okay, and also testing of these proteins. Now, how is biotechnology applied in agriculture? So, we know that our population is increasing day by day. So, for the increased population, we require increase in food productivity also. So, generally we try to achieve this food productivity increase by either agrochemical based agriculture or organic agriculture or genetically engineered crop based agriculture. Now, if we used agrochemical based agriculture, just like in a few years before, by green revolution we could triple the supply of food, okay, in using improved crop varieties, better management practices like the use of different types of agrochemicals and pesticides. But there are some limitations to that. The thing is, even though we could triple the food supply, but even now it is not enough for our growing population. Secondly, many of our farmers still find these agrochemicals too expensive to buy, and they also have a deleterious effect on nature. Another thing is we do not have any more scope for improving or producing new varieties using our existing technologies or our conventional breeding technologies. So that is why we have turned to genetically modified crops. So what is a genetically modified crop? So a genetically modified crop is one in which we have inserted desirable genes from other organisms to give it a better yield. Generally, how they are useful we will see. Genetically modified crops will be mostly tolerant to abiotic stresses such as cold, drought, salinity, heat, etc. They will show insect or pest resistant and also herbicide resistance. Herbicide resistance because generally when weedicides are applied to the crop fields to kill weeds, sometimes the crop plants also get affected. So if they are herbicide resistant, they will be resistant to the application of weeds. Then being pest resistant or insect resistant means we can reduce our dependence on chemical pesticides, so it will help nature also. Then another is to reduce the post harvest losses. For example, if you take tomato, if lots of tomato are harvested together and it is not sold at the same time, many of them will start rotting, so that produces loss for the farmers. So we can produce some types of fruits which will not decay immediately and which will have a longer shelf life. Another aspect is efficient mineral usage by plants. So the normal conventionally bred plants, they require large amounts of nutrients from the soil. So easy or earlier drainage of nutrients from the soil is seen. So if we are using genetically modified crops, we can control that. Then we can increase the nutritional value of foods. For example, we have a rice which is enriched with vitamin A. So the beta carotene that is required to enrich it is taken from daffodils and then introduced into rice to produce this golden rice. That's why it is yellow color. Then other than this, we can also produce plants which will produce or which will provide raw material for our industries in the form of starches, fuels and some type of pharmaceuticals. Now, Some examples of applications of biotechnology in agriculture we'll be seeing. The most important application is to produce pest resistant plants, because that is one of the most important factors that reduces our productivity. So generally we produce pest resistant plants by taking some particular type of genes which will produce toxins from other bacteria and then introducing it into plants, so that the organism that will feed on this plant will die because of the toxin. So we have developed so many pest resistant varieties like BT cotton, BT corn, then rice, tomato, potato and soybean. Okay. So one example we will see is BT cotton. So BT stands for a bacteria whose name is Bacillus thuringiensis. Now this Bacillus thuringiensis is a soil bacterium and it produces some proteins which will kill many groups of insects like leptopterans, coleopterans, dipterans. So the toxic protein that Bacillus thuringiensis produced is generally in a protoxin form or an inactive form in its body, and it is generally produced during a particular phase of their life. But when this toxin reaches into the insects, the saliva of the insects will solubilize the toxin, and then in the alkaline pH of its gut, this toxin will get activated. Okay, so this activated toxin, what it does is it gets attached to the midgut epithelial cells in the digestive tract. Then this midgut epithelial cells, when it is attaching to the membrane, it starts creating small holes or pores, and then this leads to cell swelling and then lysis or breakage, and eventually the insect will die. So this toxin of the bacteria will help in killing the pest. So generally earlier what farmers used to do was they used to take the spores of this bacteria and then they used to spray it over the plants after mixing it with water. But what if we can introduce the same gene into the plant? So this toxin is generally produced or encoded by a gene which is called as Cry in the bacterium. Okay, so these Cry genes are introduced into cotton plants to protect them or to make them into an insect resistant variety of cotton. So generally cotton bollworms, they are very serious pests of cotton. So the genes encoded by Cry1AC and Cry2AB, we can use them to control these cotton bollworms. The same way, another plant that is affected is the corn or maize. Okay, so again the gene Cry1AB, which can help us to control the corn borer. Okay, so in this way we are able to produce pest resistant plants. Now another example of producing pest resistant plants is producing plants resistant against the nematode pests. So nematode pests are also one big infestation and they reduce the productivity of farmers. Okay, especially if you take tobacco farmers, it is a very important cash crop for them, but there are some nematodes which will destroy their produce. So one of them is Melodygyne incognitia, which is a nematode that infests the roots of these tobacco plants. So what we do is, there is already a mechanism that is called as RNA interference, which is existing in eukaryotic cells. It is a method of cellular defense to prevent unwanted viruses and all attacking the cell. So we use the property of this RNA interference to destroy the nematode which is infesting the roots of the tobacco plant. So what we do is, generally in RNA interference, what happens is that if there is a double-stranded RNA, it will bind to the mRNA and prevent translation of mRNA. We call it as silencing. Okay. So normally in cells, this complementary RNA, it may either come due to infection by viruses or sometimes the transposons, which you may have studied in the genetics chapter. So in this case, in case of tobacco, how we use this RNA interference is using agrobacterium vectors. We will introduce this some particular nematode specific genes which will be producing some vital protein for the nematode into the host plant. Now when we introduce this DNA into the host plant, naturally it will produce both sense and antisense RNA, and since sense and antisense RNA, they are complementary to each other, they will form a double stranded RNA. Now as soon as a double stranded RNA is formed, this leads to activation of the RNA interference mechanism in the cells. So this RNA interference mechanism, how it will work here is, there are some enzymes that are called as diacers which will cut this double stranded RNA into small pieces that we call as small interfering RNA. Now as soon as these small interfering RNAs are produced, they will bind to another complex, enzyme complex, that is called as the RNA induced silencing complex. Now this RNA induced silencing complex, it will digest one strand of the double stranded RNA piece, and one strand of this RNA will be used to detect other complementary single stranded RNA molecules or the mRNA. So they will be able to find the mRNA, and then once the mRNA is found, again this will bind to that and the whole double stranded RNA will be destroyed. So the nuclease activity of RNA will help in destroying the mRNA when it gets complementary to the single strand RNA that is there inside the RNA interference silencing complex. So in this way we will destroy the mRNA of the nematode. So if the mRNA of the nematode is silenced, naturally its vital proteins will not be produced and the parasite cannot survive in the host. So in this way we are able to counter that. The next application of biotechnology is in medicine. This is also very important to us because many diseases in human beings, now we are trying to find cures using biotechnology. Now this field is generally called as recombinant therapeutics. That is, we are using recombinant DNA technology to understand the structure, function and regulation of their genes and their products, and then we are trying to correct their defects also. Okay. So we can also produce large amounts of drugs in a very safe and efficient way without producing any immunological responses. Generally, when we take products from other animals, they will be foreign proteins. So our body may show immunological response to these proteins. So without that we will be able to use them, and they can also be used to correct gene defects. So now we will see two examples of the application of genetic engineering in medicine. The first one is genetically engineered insulin. Now genetically engineered insulin you all know is a hormone produced by our pancreas and which is necessary for the glucose metabolism. So the excess glucose in blood is converted to glycogen with the help of insulin. If insulin is not produced in enough amounts by our pancreas, then it will lead to more amount of glucose in blood, and that leads to the disease diabetes. And because of our present lifestyle, we find that the incidence of diabetes is increasing more and more in the population. When the incidence of diabetes increases, naturally the requirement for the insulin hormone also increases. So earlier we used to extract this insulin from the pancreas of slaughtered pigs and cattle. But the amount of insulin available was very less, and we had to kill a large number of animals to get small amounts of insulin. So when the amount available was less, naturally availability would also be a problem. It would not be accessible to more number of people. The rate also would be very high. So if we are able to produce insulin on a large scale using microorganisms and recombinant technology, it would be a boon to mankind. So that's how this process was initiated. But there were some problems involved. So the problem involved was, if you see our human insulin gene or the production of human insulin, generally the proinsulin or the premature form of the insulin had three protein chains. There is an A chain, there is a B chain and there is a C chain. But once the insulin matures, this C chain is lost. But we do not know the mechanisms by which the C chain is removed from the insulin chain. So what Eli Lilly company did is, they produced they took two groups of bacteria and they separated the genes for A chain and B chain and introduced them into the plasmids of E. coli, and they used the bacteria to produce this A chains and B chains. Okay, and then their A chain and B chains, that is the insulin A chain and B chain, were separately produced, extracted and then combined using disulfide bonds. So there was no problem of the C-peptide chain being removed or being present because it was not at all produced. Directly they produce the A chain and the B chain and then they combine them together to form the insulin that we call as humulin. Human insulin is called as humulin. So advantage of this is the earlier insulin that we took from animals used to produce allergies in humans. So if we are producing insulin from the human gene itself, it will not produce allergies. Then the next field in medicine where we use biotechnology is gene therapy. So what is gene therapy? So by gene therapy we are trying to cure the genetic diseases or congenital diseases. So generally we are not able to cure genetic or congenital diseases because already by birth they are there and that is because of defect in the genes. So we cannot use medicines against them. So gene therapy is a way in which we can at least try to correct such type of genetic and congenital diseases. So what exactly happens in gene therapy? So what we do is we introduce genes into a person's cells and tissues to treat a disease. Okay. So suppose if we have a defective gene, this defective gene can be replaced by a normal gene. Okay. So that the normal gene will take over the function. And if we are able to do this in the embryonic stage itself, then that will be a permanent solution for this type of defects. So we'll understand gene therapy with an example. So the first gene therapy that was done in a 4-year-old girl in 1990 in America against adenosine deaminase deficiency. So adenosine deaminase is actually an enzyme that is very much required for our immune system because this enzyme generally breaks down deoxyadenosine into uric acids. So when this gene is deficient in the body or if the gene is mutated in the body, this enzyme will not be produced. If the enzyme is not produced, then there is a toxic product called deoxyadenosine that will be accumulated in the cells which will destroy our T cells and B cells. Okay, the lymphocytes, T cells and B cells will be affected. So because they are affected, our immune system also gets affected. So sometimes it leads to the condition that we call as severe combined immunodeficiency, SCID. Okay. Now generally this ADA deficiency we can treat either with bone marrow transplantation or with enzyme replacement therapy. So bone marrow transplantation is also not a permanent solution. It creates pain also. Then or enzyme and replacement therapies, you have to continuously give injections of the ADA enzyme, which also is not a lasting solution. Actually it is painful also for the children. So the gene therapy we have developed for ADA deficiency is we isolate the lymphocytes of the patient, bring it outside the body, culture it in vitro, then the functional ADA gene will be introduced into these cultured lymphocytes using the vector that is ADA-cDNA, and then these lymphocytes which have the new gene are then returned back to the patient's body. Okay. But again there is a small drawback to that. The lymphocytes are not immortal. They will have a particular lifespan. Then after that again this repeated infusion, repeated injection we have to do of these genetically engineered lymphocytes. Then what is the permanent cure that is available? So the permanent cure that is available is we can introduce the gene directly into the bone marrow cells, that is in the stem cells in the embryonic stages. So if stem cells we are able to introduce the correct gene, then in later on in life you need not go for continuous replacement of the cells. Okay. So this is just a diagram to show how it is done. Now the next field where we use biotechnology is molecular diagnosis. So you know that diagnosis of a disease is very important with respect to correction of the defect. And generally the severity of the disease depends on the number of microbes that are there in your body. More the number of microbes in your body, more is the severity of the disease. So if we are able to identify the disease when the pathogen is in few numbers inside the body, we will be able to easily cure the disease. So that is where molecular diagnosis helps us. Okay. So generally if the pathogen is found in small amounts, we are not able to detect it. But if we can amplify the amount of this pathogen, then we can easily find out outside the body, we can easily find out its presence. So generally the methods that we use for molecular diagnosis is recombinant DNA technology, polymerase chain reaction, and ELISA, that is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, which you must have studied about in human health and disease when we talked about AIDS. So how PCR will help is, see, if we are able to detect at least some viruses in the blood, then especially for example in the case of AIDS, okay, then we can start treatment early and help. So PCR, you know, will amplify the gene or amplify the DNA several folds. So we can use PCR to amplify the antigens and then find out whether it is present or not. Okay. Other than that, we are also using PCR to find out mutations in genes, especially in the suspected cancer patients. So generally how we do that? So we can use a radioactive probe here. So what we do is, the gene is hybridized with a radioactive probe. Okay, and then autoradiography is used for detection. So what happens is that there will be a clone of normal cells and a clone of cells which we suspect has a mutated gene. So when we do autoradiography after attaching to the probe, you will find that the normal clone of genes, they will show a normal autoradiogram, but the one which has mutated genes, those genes will not appear in the photographic film. So because the probe will not be able to bind with the mutated one, so in this way we will be able to detect the abnormality. Okay. Then ELISA is actually a test that is based on antigen antibody interactions. So you know that antigen antibody interactions are specific, and if the antigen is there, the antibody will be produced in the body against that, and generally they will bind to each other also. So using this principle, we generally identify either the antigen using the antibody, or we find the antibody using the antigen. Okay, so that is about ELISA. Then the next field where we have used our biotechnology is transgenic animals. So naturally transgenic animals, some of them you can see on the screen. There is a glowfish, then the transparent frog, then our human ears that are cultured in mouse. Okay, so these and all actually they have foreign DNA expressed in them. So their DNA is manipulated and we will be adding extra genes or genes taken from other organisms into these animals. So that's why we call them as transgenic animals. Now why do we produce transgenic animals?